who you choose to be in business with absolutely matters. The brokerage matters.
Hello and welcome to episode 220 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. On today's episode, we are joined by second-generation real estate agent and coach Kelley Skar. Launching his real estate career in 2007, Kelley was able to more than double his business year after year by leveraging open houses as a lead driver. Throughout his 18 years in the industry, Kelley has led thriving teams and now focuses the majority of his time on coaching fellow agents that want to scale their businesses. Throughout our conversation, we touch on three main topics: leveraging open houses to fill your database, how Kelley pivoted to digital content marketing as a way to build authority, and steps for setting and achieving goals. But before we get on to the day's featured interview, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story of real estate success or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new guests to inspire our listeners. And lastly, if you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. We stream on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and of course, YouTube. All right, let's get on with our conversation with Kelley Skar. We dive deep into several topics and he's full of great advice on each. If you'd like to hear more from Kelley, be sure to check out the episode description. I've included links to all of his social platforms. All right. Well, really the way I like to start everything out is if you could just introduce yourself to us a little bit. Tell us who you are, where you're at, and a little brief kind of backstory on how you got into real estate.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for having me, Michael. I appreciate your time today. I appreciate your audience's time as well. So my name is Kelley Skar. I'm a real estate agent. I've been in real estate I just started my 18th year, believe it or not, in August. I'm also a real estate coach. I focus more on the coaching side than I do on the sales side now. I've been a coach since about 2013, I guess, when I first started my first team. And I got into coaching agents kind of unprofessionally. Like I didn't really know what I was doing until I actually hired a coach myself and, went down that path. And so, I've been doing it officially, unofficially for about, just over the last decade. So about the last 11 years. But if we were to back up, I was actually a welder before I got into real estate. So I was a B pressure welder. I worked in the oil patch in Alberta, did that for about a decade, wound up getting hurt a couple of different times and needing to get out of the industry. And the reason being is because it was just a very negative industry. Like the guys that I worked with, they hated their jobs, they hated their lives, they hated their wives. And I needed to get out of that environment, get into something a little bit more positive. And so this was back in 2006. My wife and I just got married. So we were thinking about, okay, do I go back to university? Do I go and do something else, become an entrepreneur? Do I get into real estate? My dad was in real estate for 25 years. My sister-in-law has been in real estate in Edmonton now for 25 years. My mom did 5 years in real estate as well. So kind of had that in the blood. And I said to my wife one day, I said, well, what about real estate? She's like, okay, well, if you think you can do it, let's go for it, right? That gets us out of another 40 or 50 grand in school expenses and, no income coming in or any of that kind of stuff. So I wound up taking the courses in the evenings and on the weekends, did that for 3 months, got licensed in August of 2007. Very first deal was with my brothers. They waited for me to get my real estate license. And so it was a very easy sale. I showed them 5 houses. They picked the last one and boom, we're off to the races. I went full-time. So I started as a part-time agent. I went full-time in April of 2008. My wife was pregnant at that time with our twins. She was 4 months pregnant. And I came to her and said, look, welding is slowing down. There's not enough iron moving out in the field. Pretty good chance I'm getting laid off. There's, a number of guys that have already lost their jobs here over the last, 6 months or so. The whole, the financial collapse in the United States, oil dropped out. The price of oil dropped drastically. It just didn't make any sense for oil companies to be building wells and gas sites and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So I knew my job was on the line. And so I came to her and said, listen, I'd like to go out on my own terms rather than, have somebody tell me the way that it's going to be. So she said, well, if you think you can make it work, there was that terminology again. So I was like 100%, I'm going to go all in on this and be successful with it. So the plan was in 2008 just to do a deal a month. So I went full time in April. A deal a month was 8 transactions and I hit that goal by the end of the year. Then the goal for 2009 was to double. So I wanted to go from 8 to 16. By the end of 2009 rolled around, I realized that I had tripled. I'd done 24 transactions in an incredibly difficult market. And so then I was off to the races. Then I went all in on digital marketing, websites, video blogging, 2010, 2011. My income stayed pretty much the same from 2009, 2010, 2011. Again, we were in the midst of a massive recession, the Great Recession, I think they refer to it now in the history books. And Alberta was like, they were subject to that as well. So, income stayed pretty much the same. I had dropped a few things that I was doing that made me really successful, because I knew that in order for me to be successful, the way that my mindset is, I have to be all in on something. I can't be focused on this and this and this, these 3 or 4 different things. It's got to be all or nothing. And that was, the earlier version of me. So, I went all in on digital, video, websites, blogging, all that kind of stuff. 2012 was that breakthrough year. So at that point, I was 5 years in the business. I went from 23 or 24 transactions in 2011 to 42 transactions in 2012. And by the end of 2012, I was mapping out the idea of what my team was going to look like. And so I went and got a big, Boomtown website, was dropping like 3, my son says 3 bands a month, right? 3 grand a month on Boomtown, generating all of these leads. We were seeing like 400 leads a month. It was crazy. I went and hired a bunch of agents, came at it from a completely different mindset. It was all about making money. It wasn't about building the agent up. Hired the coach, shifted the mindset, started to see some real success with the team. Merged my team with a small boutique brokerage in Calgary. We ran as a team-based brokerage throughout 2016. And by 2017, we had decided to transform and change the model and go from team-based to a traditional model. So within about an 18 to 24-month time frame, we grew the brokerage from 9 to 115 agents. I exited out of that company in 2019. I was still coaching. Wound up with the Balloon for about 6 months, went back to an independent, went to one of those 3-letter real estate companies for about 2 years, made the move here, and then back at the Balloon. And here we are. Now it's almost 2025, which is wild. So there you go. That was like in a nutshell in about 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I really want to, I want to ask you about, when you were first starting out, what did you do to market yourself and to bring in those leads to where you did hit your goals, those first couple of years?
Yeah. So for me, it was, I made a lot of mistakes. One of the biggest, I'll start here. One of the biggest mistakes that I made was, aligning myself with the wrong mentor, the wrong people. I was getting just bad advice. And, there was a guy that I thought was a mentor, and, he was already established. He's 20 years in the business, and he's like, this is 2010. And he's like, well, I'm going to go out to the cottage this weekend. I don't do open houses. And I'm thinking, yeah, geez, you know what? I don't want to do open houses anymore either. So I'm like, I don't do open houses. Like it was stupid, right? So number one, the biggest mistake that I made was aligning myself with the wrong people. Number two was, if I could go back to my 2007 self, I would have said, listen, who you choose to be in business with absolutely matters. The brokerage matters. You might think that you're the brand, which I absolutely agree with. I think that you are the brand as an agent, but look, you need to be aligned with a brand, with a brokerage that shares your morals, your values, your ethical standards, as well as they can help you get from here to here, right? And so I made that mistake as well. Time, heals all wounds. And so you look back on that and you say, man, if only I could have gone back and saved myself, how could things be different? How could I have gone, further, faster? So those are 2 big mistakes that I made very early on, made lots of mistakes throughout my career. Where I really started to excel though, was as most new agents do, I exhausted my family, my friends. My wife wouldn't let me. She was a teacher at the time. She would not let me tie into her friend group. And this is what I used to tell her. I'm like, but teachers buy real estate. Like they buy houses. Like I need to get into those groups and start, and she's like, no, I don't want to mix business with pleasure. So I'm like, okay, I got to do this on my own. So I started doing open houses. And I got together with this guy that did a lot of luxury listings. He was like $1 million to $2 million per listing. He had a couple of developers, a couple of builders. He was on the west side of the city and, in a really well-to-do area. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to work smarter, not harder. And I'm going to go sit these open houses. I'm going to pick up like, $1 million buyers. So instead of selling like $400,000 properties, I'm going to sell 1.2 million. And man, am I ever smart. What I realized really quickly, I think it was my fourth or fifth open house that I sat, every single person, every single buyer in that $1.5 million property, they came into the open house with their realtor. Like these people were not unrepresented. So I realized that. I'm like, okay, I've got to shift gears here. I've got to figure this out. Because again, I didn't really have the training and the mentorship and the guidance at the brokerage that I was at. So I said, okay, well, what is the system? How do I develop this? How do I build this? How do I get to a point where I can actually utilize open houses to build my business? Quite honestly, man, that's exactly how I did it. I developed a system. I stuck to the system. I was consistent with the open houses, and I was continually doing them every single weekend. So, keep in mind, our kids were born in September of 2008. 2009, I was able to triple my business. I was doing at least one open house every single weekend. And so my wife's mentality shifted along with my own mentality. And when I would come home from an open house early on, she would say, well, did you sell the house? And I'm like, nah, I didn't sell the house today. Had a bunch of people come through, but they were represented and I didn't get it sold. And then once I developed this plan and implemented the plan, her ideology or her messaging, her questioning changed. And she's like, so how many clients did you pick up today? Right. I'm like, oh, I got like 4 or 5 people in the database now, like I'm going to start working them. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, that's how I did it. I door knocked my own community, old school, man, all the way, 2009. Facebook was fairly new, only 3 years old. Twitter was only 3 years old. YouTube was still a baby, right? 2006, so 3 years old. Nobody was on YouTube. There was only a couple of guys that were really leveraging it. So nobody really knew how to leverage this whole social media thing. So that really wasn't an option. So what do? You go back to old school tactics, and that's what I did. So I door knocked my community. I handed out postcards. I got in front of people. I took listings on my street. I sold people, I sold their house, sold them properties. So that was part of my 2009 journey. But open houses was where it was at. Like I developed this entire system, this whole plan where every single day I was doing at least an hour of work to prepare for that open house. And once I got inside that property, I knew exactly how to direct traffic, how to move people through the property, the right questions to ask, and then how to close for the most important thing to them, which is their information. Right. And so that's really how I did it. I went from 8 in 2008 to 24 in 2009, and it was all mostly built off of open houses. A quick story before I let you talk again, but sorry if I'm manipulating things here.
Absolutely.
So quick story. So I was doing an open house on my wife's aunt's place. So she was elderly. She moved out she was in this villa. She moved out into a home. And so we listed her place, and I had this couple walk through, and she was a consultant and he was an RCM. He was a police officer. And so very tall guy. She was a very short lady. She had this company called Banshee Consulting. I never forgot it. And so this is 2009. 8 years later, I had them on my email list. I had taken them out in 2009, showed them some properties, had them on my email list. I was continually hitting them month after month after month for 8 years. And they called me up one day in 2017 and they're like, hey, Kelley, we're done now. We're going to retire. We want you to come and sell our house. I'm like, oh, this is great. Right? Absolutely. Let's get together. So I go and I sit down in their house, and the husband says, do you remember where we met? Because I don't remember how we got your name. And I'm like, I know exactly how we met. You were RCMP. You owned Banshee Consulting, right? And they were completely blown away. They couldn't believe it. Yeah. But an example of building a database, staying in contact with them 8 years on, and I wind up selling their property, right? Yeah. And without a lot of effort. I mean, certain amount of automation built into that, certain amount of personal outreach. Like if I were to put it all together over the course of 8 years and analyze the amount of time that I actually spent trying to nurture them as a lead versus what I actually pocketed in GCI off of that sale, like we're probably talking 5 to 8x return.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. And I love, talking about how your mind shift changed towards open houses, where it's not necessarily, did you get that home sold? It's how many more leads did you bring into your database? Because I think,
Right.
For open houses, and especially newer agents that maybe don't have the marketing budgets, open houses, like that's where it's at. Your return on investment, your investment is your time and what you put into, building those conversations and learning about the property and the neighborhood in which you are showing a home in. Because, I know around my neighborhood, when there's open house, the good agents, they are out and about on the street for a couple of days prior to, drumming up, letting people know they're going to be hosting that open house. If they want to stop by, absolutely let anybody, their neighbors, their friends know to come by. And, it's a great opportunity to start building your database by hosting, your own open houses or ones for your, inside your brokerage.
Yeah, there's got to be a plan. You have to have a plan. And where it started with me was identifying the property first. If I didn't have inventory, I needed to know where the most movement in the market was. So not only price point, but also neighborhood. So that's where I started. I'm like, okay, so where are the neighborhoods that I actually want to work in? And which one of those neighborhoods are actually seeing a high rate of turnover? And now I look at the brokerage listing roster and I'm like, okay, so how many listings do we actually have in that community? And where is the meat of the market? Where are the best price points? And so back in 2009 in Calgary, price points in the northwest quadrant of the city, typically anywhere between 350 to like 550,000. That was the movement of the market. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to sit in this quadrant. I'll sit in a little small town north of Calgary called Airdrie, which was like literally 12 minutes from my house to this community. I'll sit up there as well because there's a variance of around $50,000 or $60,000. If you can't afford to live in Calgary, you can afford to live in Airdrie. So this totally makes sense. So I started sitting in these communities based on that criteria alone. Then, exactly to your point, it was all about education, my own education. So then I can have an actual educated conversation inside the property when unrepresented buyers are coming through and having a look at the home. On top of that, it's all about packaging as well. Most realtors, they'll print off an MLS sheet, right? They'll bring it with them, and that's the only thing that they've got. And it's like, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. My name is Kelley. I'm with ABC Realty. Here's my MLS sheet. Come on in, have a look around. And that's the last that you hear of them until the potential buyer gets to the door, and that now they're trying to actually close for information when they're on the way out. Right? They're on their way out because number one, they didn't like the property. Number two, the information that you gave them, they could have printed off of, the portal themselves. And number three, you didn't engage them in conversation and point interesting things out around the home. Yeah. Right. So it's 90, like anything. Like I love to watch football. Like I'm a huge, I know you're probably Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
Jacksonville. Okay. I'm sorry about your loss last week, but I'm a huge Packers fan. Right. So I'm a big Packers fan, have been for many, many years, but I love using football analogies, when it comes to business. And, these guys that get out on the field, they're hammering on each other for, a couple of hours, in order for them to prepare a play, like 90% is preparation, 10% is execution. Right. And it's the same thing with any modality that you're deploying inside of your business. 90% is prep, 10% is execution. If you're fully 100% prepared to go into that marketing effort, then the execution should take care of itself. Right. But if you're not prepared to have a conversation with somebody, if you don't know the product, if you're not out touring the product, that's another part of the plan, is to actually go out and look at 3 or 4 active listings in the area. If you're not touring that product, because look, a buyer comes through a listing that I'm sitting an open house on and they say, yeah, well, what do you know about that house around the corner at 456 Oak Street? Right. I'm like, oh, well, 456 Oak Street, I was actually in there on Thursday. That property's got this, it's got that, it's got this. Compared to this one actually blows it away. But here's the thing, like if you're interested, I've already talked to the listing agent. They've agreed to get the seller to vacate the property after this open house is completed. Look, Mr. Buyer, if you're not already represented by an agent, I would love an opportunity to take you over to 456 Oak Street and show you that property as soon as I'm done here. Are you going to be around the neighborhood for the next little while? If you're not, well, listen, give me your phone number. I'll send you a text as soon as I'm done and I'm leaving this property, and I'll meet you over there at 4:30. How does that sound? So what did I do there? I introduced my market knowledge. I set an appointment and I got his cell phone number. We're in sales, dude. This is what we do. This is what you're supposed to be doing inside the open house. You don't welcome them into the property, say, have a look around, and I'll meet you at the front door while you're on your way out.
Right.
If you're going to do that, just go do something else. Go work at McDonald's or something, like, because you're not cut out for sales, because that's exactly what this is.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, and I love that you brought that up, because I was going to mention that as well. Just having those conversations with the folks that are touring the homes, you can learn so much about their needs and why, maybe this isn't the home for them with their needs or their future needs. Maybe they have, kids on the way and it's just not quite set up great for their needs. But you were in a home yesterday, or you have other listings in the area that would work perfect for them. And by being able to, provide those other options and really cater your approach to their needs, is, they're definitely going to be giving up that contact information and not just like peace out the door and not even look at you.
Right. One of the questions that I absolutely abhor with salespeople, especially inside, realtors inside of an open house, is, so what did you think? That you're opening the door for them just to walk out the door, right? Like that's not a sales leading question. What did you think? Like, okay, so let's say you walk into the open house and I greet you at the door and I hand you my package and I get your name, and obviously I'm going to forget your name because lots is going to be going on, and that's the way my mind works, right? I think most people are like that, unless you deploy some NLP strategies where you're like repeating the name, shaking the hand, repeat, like whatever. I'm probably going to forget your name. But what I am going to do is I'm going to let you know that there's something interesting. If you're coming into his 2-story home, that there's something interesting that I want you to have a look at on the upper floor. So I'm going to say, hey, I invite you to go upstairs, have a look around. By the way, check out the primary ensuite. By the way, check out this cool niche. By the way, check out whatever. And so when they come down the stairs, then that's the conversation. Hey, what'd you think about that ensuite? Hey, what did you think about that thing? Now you're opening up the conversation. And what you're doing with that is actually building rapport. Keep in mind, you've got like 3 to 5 minutes to build rapport with these people that are coming through the door. Right? 3 to 5 minutes. So you have to be able to build that rapport rather quickly. Then when they go downstairs into the basement, because it's a finished basement, let's say, it's the same thing. Hey, make sure you check out, the cool hockey rink that my clients built for their kid, or this or that, whatever it is, like the man cave, right? The Packers man cave. Make sure you check that out, right? The Jaguars man cave. So then they come upstairs and you ask them the same thing. Hey, what'd you think about that thing? Right. And so that starts the conversation. It continues the conversation, which then ultimately leads into, hey, I'm just curious, is this the style and, area that style of home and area that you're looking in? Well, actually, we really like this one, but it's only got 3 bedrooms upstairs and we're looking for a 4-bedroom. Oh, geez, you know what, Mr. Buyer, I actually toured a bunch of the homes in the neighborhood just this past week. I saw 4 of them. 3 out of the 4 actually had 4 bedrooms. Here, come on over to the kitchen island. I got my laptop open to those 4 properties. Let's go ahead and have a look. So now I'm directing traffic. I'm bringing them over to the laptop. People just want to be led. That's all they want. They want to be told what to do. If they're told what to do, they're going to go do it. Right? If somebody says, hey, I've got these other properties, they're over here on my laptop. Come on over here and have a look. What am I going to say? No? Like, that would be rude. That would be rude, right? So I get them over to the laptop. I scroll through the properties. I show them what's what. Hey, you know what, Mr. Buyer, we've got this property open right after. If we didn't set that up already, that's no problem. Then it's like, hey, listen, I can email these to you right before you guys even leave the neighborhood. Hey, Mr. Buyer, all I need is your name and your phone number. By the way, my name is Kelley. I shake their hand again. I reintroduce myself. Then they give me their name and I open up the portal and I input their email address and get their phone number. And boom, I send off that email. And so then what happens after that? I shoot them a quick text. As soon as they're out of the neighborhood, I shoot them a quick text. Hey, Mr. Buyer, did you get my email? Yes, we did. Great. Awesome. Then you move to the appointment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you mentioned that you really started focusing a lot on the digital marketing as well, through the digital blogging and the content creation and things like that. How did your approach change, from going from the open houses and creating those personal connections pretty quickly? You're meeting these people walking into homes, as compared to the the content creation and kind of meeting people more, not necessarily on a cold basis, because they are looking, they're viewing your content and, learning your information, but, you're not being able to connect on a personal level right away.
Yeah. So that's, the approach that I took to open houses, the approach that I took to door knocking, was very similar to the approach that I took in terms of digital marketing. And that was becoming a knowledge broker. And, kind of going off you hear, Alex Hormozy talk about this all the time. Dan Martell, who's my coach, he talks about this all the time as well. Believe it or not, Gary Vaynerchuk was talking about this 15 years ago, right? These guys have just figured this out. They're now talking about the same thing. And what they're saying is give it all away. Just give them everything, right? So I'm just going to tell them everything. So here's all of the knowledge that I have. This is how you go through the sales process. This is how I list your property. This is, then I'm giving them information about the city. I'm forming opinions. I'm not afraid to express my opinion, right? So I just become that knowledge broker, and I start to put that out on the interwebs. YouTube was the platform that I embraced early on in 2010. Quite honestly, man, I didn't really have a strategy going into that. Here's what I knew. I knew I needed a flip cam. I knew I needed to edit my own videos because there wasn't really anybody out there that was doing that wasn't charging like $1,500 a video. Like Upwork didn't exist. Fiverr didn't exist. Like none of these platforms existed back then. Like, what is that, 14 years ago now? It's amazing how far we've come in 14 years. It's wild. But so I had to learn all this stuff on my own. The strategy that I had was based off of the book Crush It. And that was just, I'm going to give everything away. So I had a pigeon problem. This is one of the videos that I had on my channel. Probably the most organic video that I ever had. I think I had like 13,000 views on this one video, and it was how to get rid of a pigeon problem underneath your deck. Right. So I researched on the internet. I found all of these different ideas, and so I ultimately chose this one thing, and then I just filmed myself going and doing the thing. Mm-hmm. Right? Like 13,000 organic views on this stupid video about pigeons. Now, you might look at that and go, well, how does that relate to real estate? Well, it relates to real estate because I am a real person. I am a homeowner. I'm just like you. I have these same problems that you have. You're coming to this platform using it like an encyclopedia instead of a newspaper. You're looking for details or information on how to do this, that, and the other thing. And so I thought, okay, well, if I can walk people through how to purchase a foreclosure, what a stigmatized property means, what it means if you're going to buy a grow up. That was another one of my most trafficked videos, and probably one of the videos that I got some of the most phone calls from was a video that I did on how to actually purchase a former grow op, like a marijuana grow op. Mm-hmm. That becomes a stigmatized property. There was a bunch of rules and stuff. And so I put this video together. So the whole strategy, I guess at the end of the day, was just, blast, spray and pray, so to speak. And so that's exactly what I did. I created content. I mapped out what I was going to talk about. I had no scripting. Dude, I had a flip cam. The USB thing on the side that sticks into your PC laptop. Like right. That's what I was working off of. I didn't have there was no iPhones. I didn't have a teleprompter. There was none of that. Right. So I would shoot the video and then I would edit the video. If there's ums and ahs and stuff like that, I would edit the video. So here's what I would do. Every Sunday was my content creation day. I would go into the office. We had an office at our house. I had 4 shirts hanging kind of off camera. And I would start out my first video. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Calgary Real Estate Connection. I'm your host, Kelley Skar, blah, 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 blah. And then it'd be happy Tuesday, happy Wednesday, and so on and so forth. And so I'd have 5 videos. And then on Sundays, I would edit those videos and get them ready for upload. I'd write the blog post. I'd get them ready for upload onto YouTube. And I had this whole system laid out for myself. So every single day of the week, I was uploading a new video. And so I started speaking on this, associations and brokerages and boards would hire me to come out and speak to their agents about, how I was able to create this content and yet still be able to have a real estate business. What they didn't realize was that I had this little efficiency trick where I shut all of my content on I wasn't shooting content daily. Like nobody can do that, right? At least back then, right? So that's my very long answer to your short question. So that was the ideology, was knowledge broker, put it out there, allow people, promote it, right? And then, spray and pray, basically. Hopefully people will see it and hopefully they actually make the call or reach out.
Right. And I think, having that approach and really providing all that value, how important is it also to, once they do call or once they do want to, start engaging with you, that you are, that you have, because you've been doing it, you do things every day, you have a whole library of more stuff to continue to give them, whether that's through an email drip campaign that you're able to link back to previous videos that you've done, but just having more and more value that you're giving to them for free. All you've asked for is their email address or a phone number at that point.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. Just talk to me about it. The kind of the process for once you get somebody into that has made a phone call to kind of start warming them up even more to get them to the point to where they are ready to either list or sell with you.
Yeah. So that's where the scripting comes in, right? And that's where the sales language comes in. It's really important for agents in this day and age to actually have sales scripts. Like they should have word tracks, right? Like Andy Elliott calls them word tracks. Like I've been following that guy for probably about a year and a half or so. And he's out there, like he's in your face. And I love that sort of thing. But man, he is so wicked smart when it comes to scripting. Like he'll call dealerships and he'll get the internet salesperson on the phone, and then he rates them basically is what he does, right? And most of the time, these salespeople they're far more interested in getting off the phone quickly than they are about making a sale. And that's a problem with, I think, a lot of agents is that they're trying to get off the phone as quick as they possibly can without actually trying to make the sale over the phone. And keep in mind, the sale isn't, I'm going to sell you a property. The sale for a real estate agent over the phone is, I'm going to set an appointment so that I can then determine whether I'm going to work with you and vice versa so that I can sell you a property. So it's really knowing and understanding which questions to ask, when to ask them, and how to ask them. Right. So, somebody calls me up and they say, hey, I saw your video on the stigmatized properties. Can you tell me more about that? Well, that's easy. That's just a lead in. It's like, oh, hey, listen, by the way, I'd love to have that conversation with you. Who am I speaking to? You got to get their name first and foremost, right? You've got to build that rapport really quickly. Like I said, in an open house, you have 3 to 5 minutes. On the phone, it's even less because they're not face to face with you. It's really easy to grab your phone and go click. Right. So you've got an even shorter amount of time to be able to build that rapport quickly. So you get their name first and foremost. Then you have talking points around that piece of content. Right. Oh, well, so the stigmatized property, we've got a database. I can get you access to the database. You can text me your email address after we're done this call. But, we've got this database full of stigmatized property listings. There's a process that we have to go through in order to be able to successfully purchase these properties. I'd love an opportunity to sit down and have this conversation, go a little bit deeper with you. But first, I need to know, are you an investor or are you looking for this property for yourself? Right. So now I'm asking the right questions, right? So I've set him up. I'm future pacing that person, he or she that's on the other end of the line that's called and asked the question. I've said we have a database. I said that there's a process that we have to go through. So I'm future pacing them on that. By the way, now I'm asking them, are you an investor or are you looking for this property for your own home that you're going to live in? Because then there's a direction that we have to go in specific to that style of property in one of two ways, because they're different conversations. Like if you're going to be living in the property, that's a different conversation than if you're an investor, right? Because there's laws and legal and all that kind of stuff built around that. So then they say, well, I'm interested in, purchasing it for ourselves. Great. Then we go down that track and we have a very quick conversation. The conversation is all about asking questions, which then leads them to the end result, which is setting the appointment to sit down and go deeper into what it is that they're looking for. Yeah. Right. So when they say, well, I'm looking for this property for myself. Great. I'm curious. How long have you been looking for a home? Mm-hmm. Right. I made this mistake one time. I'd actually asked somebody, I was driving, answered the call, came up on my Bluetooth, went through my series of questions. The question that I asked was, so are you a renter right now or do you own your own home? And they're like, oh, well, we rent. This would be the first property that we're going to purchase. I'm like rather innocuous. Like I didn't think it was I thought that question was a good question, right? So I set the appointment, I hang up with them. 10 minutes later, I get a call from the same person. They're like, you know what? We've been thinking about that question that you asked us, and it seemed like you were very condescending with the fact that we were a renter. We've decided to cancel the appointment. We're going to go with somebody else. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. Whoa. Back up the phone. Like, what are you talking? I asked them a question as to like, are you a homeowner or are you currently renting? Right. So, you've got to be careful in this day and age, with respect to the questions that you're asking. But you do ultimately want to find out, do they have a home to sell or are they a tenant? Are they a first-time buyer or do they have a home to sell? That's the better question, right? So I'm curious, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, would you be a first-time buyer or do you have a home to sell as well? Instead of asking them if they're a tenant. Right. So now we're asking the right questions. Well, we'd be first time buyers. Okay. Well, you know what? There's a lot of rules in place, not only for first time buyers, but especially when it comes to these stigmatized properties. Here's what I'd love to do. I've got a full on, presentation. It's very quick. Take me about 10 minutes to go through. I'd love an opportunity to either jump on Zoom with you guys or meet you at a coffee shop. I've got your number already. I'm curious, would tomorrow at 2 work well for you or Monday at 9 be better? Right. So there's a lot of stuff that we can unpack in there, but ultimately I've future paced them for that last question, right? Because they know it's coming. Like subconsciously, they know it's coming. And if I can offer enough value during that call, boom, I'm going to be able to set that appointment.
Right. And I love the fact that you actually had specific times and dates when you were asking, to set an appointment. And it's not this big open-ended thing where it just kind of, nobody knows who, where the ball, whose court the ball is in. And yeah, we'll get back to you when we're ready. And then it just kind of poof goes away.
Yeah, it's a 2-option close, right? That's what that's called. You give them a 2-option close. And again, this comes back to sales language is all about leading people towards the end result. You're not manipulating them. Look, they put up their hand for a reason. They've got questions about the process. They called me based off the information in this video because they want more information. In order for me to get more information, I need more information from them. I have to be able to decide whether we can work together and vice versa. They need to be able to make that decision as well. And so the only way to do that is to actually get face to face with people. And I'm not talking physically face to face. It doesn't have to be physically face to face. So I built a YouTube channel for Kelowna. That's one of the first things that I did when we first moved here 3 years ago. New agent in a new town. Even though I've been in the business for 14 years, I'm still a new agent in a new town. There's lots to navigate. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go back to what I know, built this YouTube channel. Boom. I start getting phone calls. I start getting opt-ins into my Calendly account. I started having Zoom conversations with people. The next thing you know, I'm taking them out. I'm showing the property. I'm writing offers. Like this stuff actually works, right? And again, it's all about being a knowledge broker and putting that information out there, creating enough valuable content so that people see that value and they go, that's somebody I think we can work with, honey. I think we've got a few more questions. Let's see if we can get this guy on the phone, right? And the weird thing about it was they would be all giddy on the other end of the camera over Zoom. They'd be like, I had this one couple, they said this, I sold them a place over in West Kelowna a couple of years ago. And they're like, we can't believe that we're sitting here talking to you right now. I'm like, what? I'm just some dude. I'm just like, what are you even talking about? I'm a realtor. Like I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a brother. Like, it's bizarre that you think that way, but that's exactly what it is, man. You're creating this certain amount of celebrity and people look at you as an authority. Mm-hmm. They're looking for more information, right? And so if you can become that knowledge broker and have the sales language to move them through the buying and selling process and get them to where you're going to be comfortable, which is face to face in front of them so that you can have that deeper, more meaningful conversation and continue to build that relationship, your odds of actually gaining them as a client increase exponentially.
Right. Absolutely. And what I really like about this type of lead generation is, you really are, you're kind of recession proofing yourself because if the more and more people are going to have to buy and sell regardless of what the market conditions are, there are going to be, life altering things that happen to where, whether they're being, relocating for jobs or divorce or inheritance, whatever it is that comes up, regardless of what the market conditions are, there are people buying and selling. And by, being the person that's providing that value all the time, you are really, you're going a long way in kind of insulating yourself against big, market changes.
Yeah, 100%, man. And this is no longer about spray and pray, right? This is very strategic now. like specifically with YouTube. So let's go down that track a little bit. So I'm a firm believer in getting into rooms where you're the dumbest person in the room. And if I got to pay to be in that room, that's what I'm going to do. Like the coach that I hired was not cheap, right? But I'm in a room with a bunch of people that know way more than I do. And that's where I prefer to be. I don't want to be the guy on stage. I'd rather be the guy in the back with my notebook taking notes so that I can learn everything that guy on stage is actually doing and figure out whether I can actually deploy that in my own business. So I want to be the dumbest guy in the room. I'm part of a YouTube mastermind with a guy that's growing a channel who also pays to be in the right rooms. He's just got a little bit more money than I do, right? So he's in rooms with guys like Daryl Eves, who coaches Mr. Beast, right? So he gets in a room with him for $50,000 and 4 meetings in a year. Right. So, but then he takes what he learns and he basically rolls that downhill to us. And so I've been in this mastermind with him for, well over a year now. And some of the stuff that I've been able to pull out from that mastermind is crazy. Here are probably the top 3 tactics that you really need to know and understand. Around YouTube specifically. Number 1, you have to do your research. Remember we talked about preparation, like 90%, 10% execution. It's the same thing with YouTube. This is no different. You absolutely have to do your research and understand what your audience is actually consuming. Number 1, who your avatar is. Number 2, what they're actually consuming. If you know the type of content that they're consuming, it makes it really easy for you then to figure out what buckets to put that content into. Okay, so that's the first thing, is do your research. Number 2, packaging is the most important piece when you are doing YouTube videos. And what I mean by that is thumbnail, title, and content. Like specifically in that order: thumbnail, title, and content. Here's why. Your thumbnail, we're visual people. When you go on that platform, what's the first thing you see? It's thumbnails. The thumbnails draw you in. Okay. The thumbnail draws you in. The next thing that you look at is the title. Between the thumbnail and the title is where people will make the decision as to whether they're going to click on the video and actually watch the video. Yep. The third most important piece is the content. So you've always got to start with a hook. You've got to have something to draw them into the video. Within that first 10 seconds, they got to know that this is the video that they signed up to watch. And if it's like 15 minutes long, they're going to invest 15 minutes into this video. That's the goal, right? So the hook is probably the most important piece of the content. And then the content's got to be rock solid. Okay. So packaging. So know your audience. Packaging. The third piece of this is the marketing piece of it. Right. And so, a lot of people are like, well, don't post this stuff up on Instagram. Don't bother posting it on Facebook. Don't push it. I'm like, no, that's where we blast this stuff out. Right. If you've got any sort of an email list and they're getting used to your content, seeing it every single week. I mean, if you're doing a video a week, you should be putting that video out to your email list, like what you were talking about earlier. Right. 100% market that sucker. Get it out onto Facebook. Post up the picture so the thumbnail. So here's a pro tip for you. Post up the thumbnail of the photo on Facebook, put a little blurb about the video, and then direct people to the first comment. And then put the link of the video in that first comment. Here's why. Facebook has its own video platform. They don't want to compete with YouTube. Right. So if you put the YouTube link in the description of the thing that you're posting, Facebook is going to suppress that. But if it's in the comment, they're not going to suppress it. So you're going to have a little bit better of an opportunity for people to actually watch that piece of content. I say put it up on Instagram as well. Provide that link. Put it up in your story. Direct people to click that link to go to the video. Put it into LinkedIn. Exactly the same strategies, right? Blast it out there. Try to get as many eyeballs on it as you possibly can. Because the way that the algorithm works is it will take your video and push it out to your current following. And if your current following likes what it sees, the algorithm is going to take that video and push it out to another audience. That audience is going to be tied to your followers. So meaning they're going to be in your same niche. If that group of followers actually likes that video, YouTube is going to continue to push it to other audiences that are all interconnected. And that's how you wind up getting the number of views up on some of those videos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know how much time you have. I don't know, if you've got more time for us, but with one of your, on your YouTube channel and some of the videos that I was watching, was really, really focused on goal setting and, the mindset around goal setting. And at the time, we're recording this is 1st of November, getting close to the end of the year. And so if you have time, I'd love to be able to talk to you about some of your, best strategies for goal setting, because, one of the videos was, even titled something like, how you're setting your goals wrong, like the smart way to set your goals.
Yeah, SMART goals. I mean, I think everybody knows the acronym, right? SMART. So I love the whole SMART goal ideology, but I think at the end of the day, goals are nothing without discipline. The discipline to execute, you're never going to accomplish the goal. And so you have to start working on your daily disciplines. Right. And there's something that my coach introduced me to 46 days ago, and it's called the 5 daily non-negotiables. And I'll go through those with you for your audience as well. But I'm going to tell you, so I'm 46 days in to this coaching relationships. I'm 46 days into the 5 DNNs, 5 daily non-negotiables. And here's what I've seen. My consistency around posting on Instagram has increased. I'm posting there at least 3 times a day. I culled the herd. My Instagram at Kelley Skar. Back in 2018, I bought followers. I was one of those guys. It was a vanity thing. It was a metric. I'm like, okay, so let's go ahead and spend $150. I bought followers. Big mistake. So I got rid of 1,300 followers on my Instagram account. Over the last 46 days, I've gained better than a follower a day. I've gained 50 new followers on that account. Some people listening to your podcast are like, 50, like that's nothing. For me, it's something. Right. Because I know that if I continue to be consistent with that, I'm going to continue to increase those amount of followers to 2 per day. Right. And next thing you know, I'm not at 1 per day. I'm at 2 per day. Now I'm at well above. So I'm just trying to build the platform. But I'm doing it through consistency. So consistency is absolutely key. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, my mindset has completely changed in the last 46 days, especially when it comes to health. I'm seeing a naturopath now. Just had an appointment with her yesterday. I've either been in the gym, hiking, or going for walks 45 minutes every single day the last 46 days. I've got one of my coaching clients now checking in with me. About 2 weeks ago, he said to me, I'm really disappointed with how I looked on that stage here, at that conference. I'm like, dude, well, what are we doing? What are you going to do about it? Well, I want to start at the gym. I'm like, okay, well, I'll hold you accountable. Here's the thing. You're never going to beat me. But let's go along for the journey. Every single morning or every single day, whenever we're in the gym or on a hike, we're doing this, that, or thing, we're going to text each other a picture to prove that we were there doing the thing. Right. And now he's 2 weeks in. He texted me his picture this morning. I texted him mine. I'm like, dude, how do you feel? He's like, I feel fantastic. I feel great. Right. Let's keep pushing. I want to keep going with this. It's like, I'm just going to improve my health better and better and better. He's now doing the 5 daily non-negotiables as well. So there's a certain mindset shift that happens when you get consistent with every aspect of your life. And so here's what they are in no particular order. Number 1, review your goals daily. Okay. So I went through this goal setting matrix that my coach laid out for me. And he had me look out 25 years from today, identify as many goals that I want to accomplish over the course of the next 25 years, and then look for consistencies in the thing that I'm doing today that's going to help me accomplish that goal. Those then become the daily goals. That's what I'm reviewing every single day. So I've taken those goals, I put them into my notes app, I screenshot the notes app, and it's now a wallpaper on my phone. Okay. So how many times do you open your phone a day? 100,
right. Hundreds,
200,
yeah, right.
Hundreds of times a day.
Right.
I force myself every time I look at my phone, I force myself to review those goals before I open my phone. What do you think that does to your mindset?
Right.
There's a complete rewiring that happens. I'm telling you because it's happening in my mind right now. Right? A complete rewiring. When I'm looking at my goals, and one of the goals is to be the best dad ever, to be a better husband, all of these other things, with business and whatever else. I look at those on a daily, man, it's everything that I'm doing today, tomorrow is driving towards accomplishing those goals. So review your goals daily. You don't just review them, stick them in the desk, and then that's it. Right? You've got to be committed to the process. If you're not committed, you're just interested. So don't even bother. Right? So review your goals daily. Number 2, read at least 10 pages of a nonfiction book. Now, if you've done 75 hard like I have, then this might sound a little bit familiar, right? So Andy Frisella talks a lot about, well, you got to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book. Dan said the same thing. He's like 10 pages of a nonfiction book. Well, what's happened in the last 46 days? I've read 3 books in 46 days. Okay. 3 books. I haven't read 3 books in the last 2 years.
Right.
Okay. So I've read 3 books in the last 46 days. I'm now on to my 4th book. I'm opening up Hormozi's book, $100 Million Offers. I've just listened to the audiobook. I had to buy the actual book because I feel like it's more of a workbook than anything else. So now I'm going to start diving in, and that'll be another book that I read. I'm also reading, so I'm reading 3 right now. So I'm going to start Hormozi's book. I've got The Ultimate Sales Letter by Dan Kennedy, and I'm also reading Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. So 10 pages a day. So I don't read just 10 pages. I get up in the morning. I have my coffee with my wife. We sit down in our chairs. I open up my book. She opens up her phone because she reads off of her phone. I open up my book. I read 10 pages in the morning, and I read 10 pages at night before I go to bed. And now what I'm going to do is I'll implement at least 10 pages while I'm at the office every single day as well. So that's how I'm going to manage being able to read 3 books at a time. Okay. So reading, review your goals, 10 pages a day. Third thing is you're 45 minutes in the gym or, some sort of a sweat inducing workout every single day. There's no days off. Like you can take a day off when you're dead, right? One of the biggest regrets, I think my parents who are both still alive, my dad's 87, my mom's 81, they're falling on ill health now, right? When I'm 87 years old, I don't want to be taking a bunch of drugs to keep me going. Right. Things have changed. The whole mindset mentality, Dr. Peter Attia, like this whole longevity project, right? My wife and I were just talking about this morning. Things have changed so drastically within the last 5 to 10 years that people are willing to do whatever it takes in order to be able to live longer and have a more fulfilling life for a longer period of time. Right. Like, there's guys that I see. I was talking to an office here the other day. They have a realtor that's in their office. He's 82 years old. I hope he's working because he loves the job. I hope he's not working because he needs to. Right. But dude, when I'm in my 80s, man, I don't want to be not working. I want my brain to keep going. Like, I don't want to just sit on the couch and do nothing. I don't want to be on the golf course playing golf 4 times a day. Well, that's virtually impossible. But you know what I'm saying, right? Right. So review your goals. Read 10 pages of a nonfiction book. Workout. So number 4 is posting at least 3 times on social media. Okay. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're attempting to build a brand. If we're real estate agents, we want to build a brand. What platform do you want to focus in on the most? Well, basically, which one do you think you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck from? Right. So if you're posting 3 pieces of content every single day and you're being really consistent with it, what happens? More eyeballs on the account, more followers on the account, which then turns into more opportunities to have conversations with people. Because here's what you do. Like, you're not going to jump on to Instagram and have somebody follow you and then ignore them. That's what I did for years. Right. I remember when Twitter first launched, like I was an early adopter of that platform, 2007. One of the things that we used to do was when somebody followed you on Twitter, you would follow them back and then DM them. Right. Hey, thanks for the follow. Curious, where are you from? You would have a conversation. Right. We've gotten away from that. We're not doing that anymore. Yeah. And so that's what we have to get back to. Right. So 3 times per day, you've got to have a strategy around that. Mm-hmm. And then the last piece of the puzzle is the 5 opens. And that's what ties into the, posting 3 times a day. So the 5 opens are, if I have, if I post up a story and I have 150 people that have viewed the story, I can go through the story on Instagram and I can directly message those people right off of that story. You do that 5 times a day. Okay. Send them a quick message just to reconnect with them. They're already part of your niche. If you're a real estate agent and you've got somebody that's followed you that's in your town and they're viewing your story, the quick question, it's a two-pronged question. You, first of all, if they follow you, this is what you say. Hey, Michael, thank you so much for following me. I really appreciate your time and attention. I'm curious, are you here for the great content or are you looking to grow your business? Right? That's what I would say. Or as a real estate agent, are you here for the great content or are you looking to buy or sell a house in Northeast Florida in the next 30, 60, 90 days? Right? Those 2 questions will hopefully, if done properly, put them down the same track. So if somebody says, yes, I'm looking to buy a house, great. That's a straight line. If somebody says I'm here for the content, then there's a list of questions that we need to go through to get them down to that same location. Right? So it's review your goals, work out, read books, post on social media at least 3 times a day, do your 5 daily opens, and those are the 5 daily non-negotiables. So here's the other thing. Some people will be like, well, how do you keep track of this? Like, how do you know that you've done it? Google Tasks, I like free. Google Tasks is free. It ties right into my calendar, right? So I can go through. Some people are like, well, I've got, I want to be able to see all the analytics. I can see all the analytics when I open my calendar. I can see whether I checked the thing off the list or not because it's still sitting there. Right? So I go through every single day and I check those things off. So when we talk about goal setting, we first have to get disciplined around being able to accomplish the goal. If your 5 daily non-negotiables, they don't have to be these things. These things just so happen to work for me because they tie directly into the goals that I want to accomplish. Right? I want to live till 90 years old. I want to have a fitness model body. As you can see, I don't have a fitness model body right now, right? I don't want to be a fitness model, but what I'm saying is I want that 6-pack. I want to have a chiseled chest. So how am I going to get there? I'm going to work out every single day. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to do all of the things that I need to do, but first I've got to get my mindset right. So when we're setting goals as real estate agents, a lot of people look at it and they go, well, it's just monetary. It isn't just monetary. There should be personal aspect to your business plan. There should be, in my opinion, there should be, yes, financial. There should be spiritual. There should be personal, right? There should at least be 3 or 4 pieces of that puzzle that you're actually setting goals towards so that you can start to work things backwards, add things to your calendar, those daily 5 non-negotiables that will allow you to start to accomplish things. And I think, a lot of times agents, they're just focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on the money. Right? You focus on other areas of your life that directly tie into the money starts to come.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And, that's that last statement there. I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to over the years doing this podcast that when their mindset shifted to that, where they really started focusing on, their own personal well-being, how quickly the career success took off and their real estate business took off when they really focused on getting themselves right first.
Oh, I saw it in 2013. So I had a coach. I went to a Boomtown conference in Charleston. Everybody that I talked to there that was running a team, and I was still pretty early on in the whole team building thing. I had no idea what I was doing. But a lot of these team leaders are like, you got to hire a coach. Check out Buffini, check out, Mike Ferry, check out these guys, check out. So I'm like, well, I'm Canadian, so I want to go the Canadian route. So I hired a Canadian coaching company and got, tied in with this coach. And one of the first things that she did was she said, why do you want to have a team? I said, well, because I want to leverage other human beings so I can make as much money as I possibly can. She's like, that is the wrong answer. And when you figure out the right answer, call me back and we can start this coaching relationship. And that was the end of our first call. I didn't have a call with her until like 3 weeks later.
Right.
I'm like, what am I paying for here? I don't get it. What I came to realize was building a real estate team isn't about the money. It's about the way that my mindset shifted, my philosophy turned was, and this is kind of pie in the sky. It's kind of airy fairy, call it whatever you want. The way that I shifted my mindset was I'm going to turn this industry for the better by making sure that every single agent that joins me is trained and coached and educated to the highest of levels. So that when they do eventually leave me, because they always do, they are going to be a much better agent than before they joined me. And that was the focus. So then once I had that laser focus, then it was easy. Then it was easy to go out and recruit agents. Then it was easy to actually keep the agents and retain them and not have to worry about them leaving or going to a different team because they knew that I was willing to pour everything that I had into them. And so that one simple mindset shift change that I made, it did a couple of things. Number one, we made more money that year than we had made the year previous. Number two, I attracted or recruited and retained agents throughout the entire year. There was no longer a revolving door. And number three, I had a set of standards that I held everybody to, including myself. And everybody adhered to those standards. If you couldn't adhere to the standards, you were out, right? There was no playing around. And everybody knew how serious I was, right? If you show up late to a meeting, that's one strike. You show up late to a meeting again, boom, you're gone. Right. And by the way, not showing up to a meeting, I'm sorry, but that's not an option. Right. I always told my agents, listen, you're either in the middle of a deal or you're dead. Those are the only two excuses that I'll accept for you not being at the meeting, right? Sounds a little bit hardcore, but listen, it worked, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, goal setting, be realistic, be specific, get measured, track what you're doing, and review daily. A lot of agents, they'll put together a business plan, they'll stick it in a drawer. They won't even look at it again. If they look at it at the end of the year, they're maybe part of like 0.2%, right? But most agents, they'll stick it in a drawer. They'll never look at it again. They've got to review goals daily, review the business plan monthly, not just quarterly, monthly. What's working, what isn't. Get rid of what's not working. Focus on the things that are.
Yeah. Before I let you go, first I want to know, for people that are listening to this and want to learn more about, the types of coaching that you do and what the training that you offer, tell us where we could find that.
Well, they can follow me on Instagram at Kelley Skar. So that's KelleySkar. I've got a website as well, but if you want to know more about me, what makes me tick, what I'm all about, if you want to go and look at some of my content and make the decision as to whether you want to follow me or not, Instagram is the place to go to.
Awesome. And then my last question, and this is, you mentioned it early on in our conversation about how, going back, you got into business with the wrong people, or maybe didn't have the right mentors. What is that one thing, or what is one thing that you would tell new agents to be looking for in, whether it's a brokerage that they're going to work for or a mentor that they're looking to connect with? What's that one thing that you feel like will really set them up for success?
The one thing that every agent needs to ask the question of a broker that they're interviewing is, what does your support and training system look like? Because if they don't have the support that they need and there's no training, they're going to be part of the 87% that are out of the business within the next 18 to 24 months. So it's not about the brand, it's not about the technology, it's not about it's not about the culture, it's about the support and the training. If you're a new agent, those are the two things that you're going to need right off the hop. All of the other stuff will come. So that's my piece of advice for, selecting a brokerage. As far as selecting a mentor is concerned, I would first say, look at where you want to go, and then find somebody that's either been there or is there. And those are the people that you want to really start to follow and have conversations with. Like I said, it all comes back to being in the dumbest guy in the room, right? I'm willing to pay for access to get into those rooms. I want to make sure that I'm leveling up. The people that I'm in the room with my coaching, like we're talking guys will jump on the call at like $300,000 a month. Those are the people that I'm surrounded by, right? Those are the people those are the levels that I want to see myself at, my company at, right? So as an agent, where do you want to be? The people, Jim Rohn said it best. You are the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And so if you come at it with that ideology, now not saying, Matt LaFleur never played a down in the NFL, right? He was a young stud coach, came out of university, college at the age of 23, 24, worked his way up the ladder, and now is the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, one of the most storied franchises in all of sports, right? He never played a down in the professional leagues, but he can coach this team to the highest of levels. Does he need to have won a Super Bowl in order for you to follow him? I think that's a big question as well. So is that kind of like the reverse of what I just said? A little bit, right? So look for the people that are doing the things that you want to be doing. So that's first and foremost. If you can't find those people, find people that can get you to like Tim Grover. Tim Grover never played a minute in the NBA, yet he was Michael Jordan's coach. That's what I'm talking about. Find people that can help you level up and get to the next level. And then once you've gotten to that next level with that person, now it's time to find somebody else to help you get to that next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So 2 ways to look for that mentor, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Yeah, man, it was a pleasure. Hopefully I didn't overwhelm your audience with a bunch of stuff here, and hopefully I didn't manipulate the conversation too much.
No, absolutely. We could have gone on for a lot longer, and I'd love to have you back in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it, man. I'd be down for that.
I really want to thank Kelley for joining us today and sharing such great advice. Remember to check out the episode description for links to all of Kelley's social channels. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or real estate tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.